today, and I'm delighted that you can all fit into the room. I'm Joanne Bundy. I chair the Community Education Council, which is happy to sponsor the bucket courses. If you will check your cell phones to make sure they are silenced, I appreciate that. And if you have an accommodation on your hearing aid for T-coil, that is available in this room, so turn that on as well. You will notice that we have a new setup for the classroom this morning, and that's because of our soft-hearted planning committee. We just hate to turn people away from the bucket courses, and so we increased the number by about 10 people, and actually we still had to turn people away. But we got more of you in, and we're happy about that. We would like your feedback from you on how you like this setup, so that when we have requests for this much registration in the future, we know whether or not it's going to work for you. And we also appreciate if you will leave your chairs where they are and not move them. They've been strategically placed so that we can, first of all, get you all in and still accommodate the fire code. So in addition to that, we don't expect to have a fire anytime soon in this room. But it's also convenient if someone doesn't feel well and needs to get out, that they have easy access, or if someone needs help, that we can get to them. So please keep the chairs where they are and leave the aisles open. For most of you, J.R. Paulson doesn't need any introduction, but I know that we do have some newcomers to the bucket courses since J.R. lectured last time. And so, for our sake, I will give him a little introduction, since he is a unique personality in our community. His day job is being a primary care physician at Grinnell Family Care. And that would be enough for most people. But that's just the beginning for JR. He is also an amateur astronomer. He has built an observatory outside of town, and he spends a lot of time stargazing out there. He has also taught himself to be an astrophotographer. And if you've seen any of his fantastic photographs around town or in his office, you know what I'm talking about. They've also been displayed in art galleries, so it's serious stuff. He and his wife, Linda, have authentically renovated the Marsh House and turned it into a bed and breakfast. So if you have family or friends coming this summer and you want a place for them to stay, you might remember the Marsh House. That's unsolicited. Let's see, he is also a musician, plays in the community band. He taught in the public schools for a while. And, he is also a certified sex therapist. So there isn't anything that JR doesn't know about or can't fix. Now, you newcomers may think that anybody who has that kind of intelligence and that much accomplishments should be addressed respectfully and reverently as Dr. Paulson. But we don't. We call him JR, and you'll see why. So it is the first class of a 4-class course for the topic of emotional well-being, from depression to happiness. Our planning committee is so pleased to be able to present this course to you, and I am happy to be able to introduce the resident genius of our community, JR.
Don't say, can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
I don't think that introduction can be topped. I paid her a lot of money for that. Particularly the Marsh House spot for Linda to get more business. Well, I appreciate you all coming here, and this class is going to be different. I'm going to go back to my 5th grade school teaching days, and we're going to use the chalkboard, which we don't have, but I wish this was bigger and I could get chalk and dust going. But I want it to be more audience participation, and you'll see where we're going with this. But before, I want to start with, I usually don't write an introduction, but so I don't get too freewheeling. I want to say a few concise remarks about why I'm doing this class. As a family physician, my goal is for my patients, and actually all people, to achieve and maintain good physical and mental health. That's why I'm in the profession I'm in. Or to achieve the Greek ideal, which was espoused by Thales, who was a philosopher about 600, before the Common Era, 600 years, who said, healthy mind in a healthy body. That was the Greek ideal. It was paraphrased later by Juvenal, who was a poet, lived in Roman times, and he gave a Latin spin to it that you may have seen around. It says, mens sana in corpore sano, which is the Latin phrase, again, a sound mind and a sound body, healthy mind. So that is the introduction for what we're going to be doing today. Unfortunately, these goals are not being met. Although it's always a struggle to get patients to get physically fit and exercise, as a medical professional, we're actually doing pretty good in some areas. Heart disease is down, high blood pressure is down, better control, strokes are down, and so we're making some progress in that area. Cancers are down in certain areas. But I think we've done very poorly in the area of mental health. I think very poorly. It seems to me also epidemic in the areas of depression, suicide, anxiety, and substance abuse, let alone post-traumatic stress disorder in our returning soldiers. Why are so many people unhappy? Today in the United States, 1 out of 10 people are either on an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety agent, or both. 1 in 10. Over 10% of all Americans can count on having a major depressive disorder. I don't mean minor, a major depressive disorder in their lifetime, or episode. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States and in the world. Close to 1 million people every year kill themselves. And 10 to 20 times more than that try and do not succeed. The NIH says 4% of adolescents in the United States now have severe depression. 30 years ago, only 1.5% of people were being treated or seen for depressive illness. Now, I told you it's over 10%. The WHO states that depression is a leading cause of disability in the world, second only to heart disease. All the manifestations that come with depression. Depression used to have an onset of 36 years of age a generation ago. Now the average onset is 26. So within one generation, the onset of the first major depressive order has moved up 10 years. With a 400% increase in antidepressant use from 1996 to 2006, are we just diagnosing it more? I would postulate that depression, you can write this down as a little pearl that I'll mention at times, is both the most overtreated and undertreated disorder there is that we see in the world of the medical community today. And I'll have to explain that later, how we're overtreating it and undertreating it. Finally, what has led to this tsunami of mental illness that has overwhelmed our healthcare system, which we saw in our survey we had last year in our community here, and in our society. Although it occurs everywhere in the world, nowhere does it affect as many people as it does in the developed, affluent, in technologically advanced countries. It almost seems counterintuitive that a poor Indian adolescent in Calcutta has a much, much less chance of getting major depression than an affluent suburban teenager in the United States. And think about his or her circumstances. How many of you know someone who has suffered depression, a moderate, severe depression in this room? Raise your hand. Look around. Keep your hands up. Look around. How many of you know at least 2 people that have had major depression? You don't have to answer this, but if you do, how many of you have suffered with a treated or untreated depression? Raise your hand. Also significant. So some of you may have had it, but just never got it treated. This is what has turned the impetus for the topic for this class for me. Although I'll focus heavily on depression, I'll also talk just as importantly about happiness. What it is in the spectrum of happiness. What makes it, and more importantly, how can one move from depression toward happiness? I like to use the term the spectrum of emotional well-being. I like that phrase, the spectrum of emotional well-being. Preparing for this class has given me the opportunity to further distill and crystallize ideas that I've had and thought over the years. So thank you for inviting me to do this class, because it's helped me try to put some of these ideas that I've had over the years. So I hope to present an insightful, practical, and meaningful approach that I hope each one of you can find something to use and apply in your own life, or to help someone else. So with that introduction, let us begin. The first part, until break, we are going to do physical health and physical well-being. And you say, why is he doing that? He's talking about this. But I think you'll see why. So let's draw a continuum on physical health up to here. So this is very good health, and this is physical fitness. Or we could say well-being. Okay, how do we want to measure that continuum? Well, the left end is pretty good. What's the worst place you can be? Dead. So let's put dead at that end. Okay? I mean, you can't be more unfit than that. And on this end, we can talk about, but you're really good shape. So let's say you're in, let's call this superior. And here you're excellent. And maybe here you're in good shape. Here you're in fair shape. And here you're in poor shape. And here you're very poor. And if you're out here, you might be hospice material. That's where you do not have a good outlook. Okay, so this is a physical fitness scale. This is questions for you. Who are people out here? How do we measure? Who would be people that would be able to have it way at that far right? Who? Olympians. So people in the Olympics. Olympics, marathon. It's going to be out here, isn't it? Just had the Boston. Do you have to be in pretty good shape to complete the Boston Marathon? Yeah, would say superior, yeah, not just excellent. Been there, done that, particularly when you get the Heartbreak Hill. Marathon, what's past marathon? Ultra marathon. And triathlete. So the tri-athletes, because they're running a marathon, they're swimming and they're biking. They're doing all three. at the same time. So if you do the Ironman and you really do a real marathon and running, they got to be in better shape, right? And then I think the Olympians out there, particularly like the decathlon, where you have to run all these events. How about road racers? What about if you do in the Tour de France? Think those guys are in pretty good shape? Yeah. So we'll say the ultimate bikers. So we kind of agree that those, we know what we're talking about with those people, correct? Down at this side, hospice, I'd say people that are bedridden. If you can't even get out of bed, don't you agree you're kind of way down there? And then there's kind of all in between. Okay? How do you know if someone is in good shape or not? Can you tell by looking at them?
A little bit.
Okay, sometimes. Right? You can see that. If they weigh 450 pounds, you probably got a clue they're not going to be at this end of the scale, correct? On the other hand, if they have it look like an ideal weight, does that necessarily mean that they're fit? No. But you can still look. So if you see some muscular guy that's really looking good, he may look good, but he might poop out walking across the, in a very short race, right?
What about sumo wrestlers?
Sumo wrestlers. That's a good question. Boy, I gotta come back to that one. That question answered. Okay, now let's talk about physical fitness. What do these people, what are their lives like? What are the characteristics of people that are super fit?
Happy.
They're what?
Discipline.
Did you say happy?
Happy?
Happy? We'll put a question mark by that one. They gotta be disciplined, right?
Yes.
Could be their profession.
Could be their profession.
That's all they do.
Good. So, the profession, if you are maybe a basketball player, you're probably up here pretty good. Golfer, maybe down a little farther, right? And if you're a farmer that does a lot of the work yourself, you might be up here in good shape. If you're a farmer, it's all mechanized, you just sit in your tractor, do GPS and plant and then harvest. Not necessarily. You run a bed and breakfast, you run up and down the stairs, you make the beds, you might be farther out here. I mean, so you can see your vocation may confer something to you. What else about these people? What else do these healthy people?
They're young. They could be a little obsessive compulsive too.
They could be a little obsessive compulsive. Okay? Particularly when you get up at this end. Two things I'm going to refer to in this class a lot are values and goals. And we'll be coming back to that a lot later. But your goals and your values, who wants to run a 100-mile race? I mean, you got to be a little, we'd say almost a little nuts, maybe. You get what I'm saying on that. So, right, you have to, maybe there's a little OCD getting over this way. What other things about people that are up here?
Some of these athletes destroy their bodies.
Yeah, you
By
can
pushing
overtrain.
themselves.
Oh, can you overtrain? Good question.
You can eat your own body fat, eat your own muscles, I mean.
So we'll come back to that in a minute. What other characteristics of these people? They're the fit
diet.
people.
Healthy diet.
They have healthy diet,
Healthy.
usually.
Purposeful diet, anyway.
So diet has some role usually. You can't be totally, if you want to move way up here. You can be in the middle and have whatever kind of diet you want. What else about these folks?
They're young.
Okay, I'm gonna put some question marks by that one. Yes,
I would say they can be old because this is all relative. You can be in excellent condition even if you're an old guy.
very good.
And also you gotta be lucky and you have to have some good genes. And I think expectations factors in too.
Luck.
Age, luck, genetics, and expectations.
Good, you guys are good. What else about these healthy people? What do they, do I see them a lot?
Do they lead balanced lives? That is, there is a spiritual part, a physical part, and a commitment to whatever they're doing, either professionally or a hobby.
I'd say it doesn't make any difference. The question is, do these people necessarily live balanced lives? And the answer is, I think, no. Sure, and we'll come back to that later in this, MJ. But no, you can be up here and be a real jerk and just focused on whatever you're in and do nothing else and whatever.
Self-directed.
Self-directed?
Well, self-motivated.
Getting back to the question, do I see these folks in the office a lot?
Social.
So what does that mean? Are these, they're healthier.
No, they have a team of people around them, what? They have a team doctor.
Aha, some of these people do, yeah.
They don't see you. They have a high price
Yes,
tag.
it's an eye.
There we go. Now, what happens when these people get sick? No. The question is, when people, in my experience, that are in good health get sick, they get over it faster, they're not as bad, and they bounce back quicker than somebody who's down here. Somebody's down here and they get pneumonia, I mean, you know, they may be in the hospital for weeks and they may not make it. And they may be in the nursing home for a while. People down here break their hip, how long are they in the Mayflower for? Different than the people up here, correct? Or we get an elective hip replacement versus a break. How fast do these people get back? So I posit that these people, they have a resiliency to the illness, and not just about drugs. Yeah.
Those people can't be in economic circumstances or poverty so that they're putting all their energy into surviving life. They have the time to do this. And I think it's kind of a
Okay.
negative, but that tends to be a lot
So
of people.
Dorothy's point is you need to have time to be able to do some of this stuff, and at least the minimum of nutrition and things to do that.
Yeah.
And I think to some degree that's true. Okay, now, how do we measure this?
Where does social interaction fit in?
Where does social interaction, it doesn't, on this. So let me, so how do we measure this? Well, let's go back to age, luck, and genes. Do genes determine where you are on here?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Somewhat, yeah.
Example for me is, when I was in junior high, I wanted to dunk a basketball. So I had the goal, I had the motivation, expectations. So, but I couldn't come close. So I got a 110-pound weight set, did squats every day, and like the stupid person did jumping jacks with 110 pounds every day, twice a day. And go upstairs 3 at a time, because I'm going to increase my vertical leaping ability. After about 6 months, I had a sore neck and a sore back, and my vertical jump was about 1 inch higher. I realized then that my genetic limitations, because I saw some of the black basketball guys that were my height, 5'8", dunk. It wasn't until I got into medical school and I learned the difference between fast and slow muscle twitch fibers that I just wasn't born with a lot of the fast twitch things. I'm never going to be a sprinter or whatever. So I also thought, well, you have to be a sprinter, maybe you can do long distance type stuff. So that's a genetic. So there's a genetic, don't you agree there's a genetic limit, upper limit on us? Okay. Is there a lower limit? Yeah, probably also. If you're born with cerebral palsy, or you're born with some type of lung or heart condition, you can have it. So genetics, yes, we agree, has a factor. Age, you already showed up. Age, no. I got some people that are 50 years older than some young kids, and they're in a lot better shape. So age is not by itself. However, there is one variable, I hate to tell you guys, but I'm not letting the cat out of the bag too early. We're all going that way. And I just tell it to you. No matter what you do, you're going to end up here. And we'll talk about that later when we turn the tables and talk about emotional risk. Okay, how do we measure this? We got really good ways to measure this. So you want to argue about what kind of state you're in? I can do it. The easiest way is I use a thing by Ken Cooper, who does the aerobics guy. Ken Cooper said you can do the 12-minute test. So he says go over the Grinnell track, and I've had patients do this. And I say get loosened up, stretched out, and get a watch and start. And you see how many laps you can make around that Grinnell track. You can walk, and then you can jog, and then you can run, or you can crawl. I don't care. But see how many times you get around that track in 12 minutes. So 12 minutes goes off, and I got around 2.5 times or 3.5 times, and that's 3/4 of a mile or blah, blah, blah. And he's got a nice little table that shows you, for your age adjusted, which it should be, exactly where you are. So think about it. In 12 minutes, if you could do 2 miles, holy cow. 2 6-minute miles, where's that going to put you? It will put you right up there. What if you do 1 mile in 12 minutes? It's going to put you about there. What if you do 1/4 of a mile in 12 minutes? It's going to put you on there. So that's a poor man's way to do that. Now, Cooper also did it on, you can just do it as a run test. He's got a swimming test. So let's say you got bad hips. He's got it. How far can you swim in 12 miles? In 12 minutes. How many yards? He'll put you on here. You want to bike? He'll see how far you can bike in a certain amount of time, distance. And so he's got this all figured out exactly. So that's the first way. So we'll go Ken Cooper. Now, if you want to go to the next stage, what do? I'll take you over to the hospital, I'll put you on a treadmill. Right? And you ever been in treadmills? If you can do the treadmill, we get you on, we get you walking, and then we gradually increase the speed and increase the angle, right? And we watch your heartbeat. And we can do that, what's called a certain protocol, where you go max. Now, normally we try to get to a target heart rate, so you get to a certain predetermined level and go, you're done. And we've got the information. But we can do a maximum one where you just go until you go, that's it. Well, can we accurately put you on there? You better believe it. No arguments or social status, it doesn't make any difference, right? Now, if you want to go a step more than that, you know what the biggest one is, the biggest test that you can do to find out really how healthy you are? It's called, see you bikers in the back know about it, VO2 max. It's called V oxygen max. This is a measure physiologically of how much oxygen you can consume and metabolize. It is the ultimate test of fitness. What you do is we put you on a treadmill, similar, and we hook a mask over your face, and so you're running around with this contraption, and it's measuring the oxygen going in and coming out. And it measures how much oxygen you can metabolize, volume, how many parts of a liter or milliliters per minute. And that And the average, really good shape, or average person can do, men around 30 to 40, Vmax, milliliters of oxygen that you can burn up. If you're in better condition, you can burn up more. So people can go up to 70, 80, and so some of the folks that have had the highest ones are the bikers or the cross-country Nordic skiers. You see the Olympics? Just about killing themselves. They measure their Vmax. You can compare athletes, any age, any country, and that's what professional athletes do. Yes, question?
I'm wondering, because this seems to be dealing primarily with cardiorespiratory fitness, and what about the case of an Olympic shot put thrower who may be able to do an extraordinary feat and be very strong, but may not be able to maximize their oxygen use?
Okay, on this fitness scale, we are going to decide to use Cooper's and Vmax. Because this is, yeah, you can be strong or push bench press 800 pounds, but that's the one thing. This is your overall fitness. Your overall, so we physiologists kind of agree on this. Okay? Now, another thing about this is we can check animals, which I think is kind of cool. What animals would you want to check? Dogs, cats. You could not get my cat to go on one of those things and pull something. And you can get dogs to do that. And the dogs can go very well, up to 4 times what humans can do. The Iditarod dogs that haul the sleds. They measure them, and their Vmaxes are in the 300s and 400s. And they've also done thoroughbred horses. Thoroughbred horses are in the 100 range to 200. So we can even do this across species. Leaving cats out. But for people, we can do that. Now, one other thing I'll talk about on fitness that we can do to measure. If you say, JR, I want to get this physical fitness test, and I want you to tell me, if you could have one value, one lab result, one thing that you could do that would predict my longevity and my health. Would it be the 12-minute test? Would it be my cholesterol level? Would it be my hemoglobin? Anybody want to venture a guess what that one number I would ask for?
Maybe purpose? Purpose in life?
Nope.
No, not at all.
That wouldn't help me at all. Because you may have a great purpose, but be in crappy shape. No, I'm just kidding, but no. The one value, anyone want to take a guess? Not blood pressure, not VO-max, even better than that. One number.
At rest heart rate.
Nope.
One pressure?
At rest heart rate.
We didn't say cholesterol.
Your vital capacity. I remember in medical school, the doctor that told me that and it stuck then and it's reverberated ever since. Said the one number that correlates most with your longevity health is your Vmax. How much air you have, your vital capacity of lungs. We do one of the breathing tests. We do that. Breathing is even more than this. And the data example from that is a Framingham study. 5,200 people. And they did the Vmax and just plotted that sucker out. And your Vmax, the better your Vmax is, the better you're going to probably live and do better. Make sense? Yeah. Breathing is pretty darn important. It's important as your heart. No, they work together. Can you change your Vmax through exercising and conditioning? Yes, but there's also a genetic limit. Unfortunately, there are 10% of people that cannot increase their Vmax even if they exercise and work out. Now that's the majority. Can, but there's a certain percent that doesn't. We know that 85-year-olds who start pumping iron can put on muscle and gain muscle mass, which we didn't think. We thought, if you get older, you can't do it. No, we can. Almost as much as teenagers can. So that's a myth that was blown out of the water recently. So, Vmax, these are ways we can measure your fitness. Okay, so then some questions are, genes, how much control do you have on your fitness? And I want to say, yeah, you can control what you do. You know, exercise, right? And other activity that you do or don't do. But what will now push you this way, correct? But what takes you that way? Huh? Right, so just doing nothing, you're going to tend to slide that way. But what else can take you that way fast?
Smoking.
Smoking, absolutely. What else?
Sugar.
What else?
Disease.
Disease. Burl, you had a disease. Was Burl pretty good walking shape up here?
Yes.
Yeah. And what disease did you get?
Guillain-Barré.
Guillain-Barré. And where did it take you? Way down. Could you walk?
No.
So it took Burl
I was bedridden.
down to bedridden. From here down to there. And how, what period of time?
About 3 days.
3 days. How long did it take you, Burl, to work up this way?
About a year.
About a year. And did you ever gain completely where you were here? So here's an example. Burl here, down here, up, because of a Guillain-Barré virus causing. My best example of how fast you can go and come back, because there's a lesson in this, Bob Molesbury. Bob Molesbury is my patient, and I would put Bob up here. He's a triathlete. He was up here. And in how much time did he go down there? The time it took for the car to hit him, or the truck. So I saw him in the yard. He was still talking, but he was not walking, and he was paralyzed from the waist down. Even at that time, it was in bad shape. So he was down here within a couple of seconds. And then when I went to see him in Des Moines, when he was in the ICU, he was down there. He was in a coma. He had like 20 units of blood. Coma. I mean, you don't get closer to much death than I've seen people. Right. Now, talk about goals and expectations. Did Bob have any interesting goals or expectations? So when Bob got out and found out I'm paralyzed, and he's way down here in the fitness thing, what's Bob decide he's going to do?
Swim.
He's going to swim, and he's going to... So then, next summer, summer after that, he's out doing rag ride. And then, he's up here again. So isn't that amazing? But the point I'm telling you is, some things are in control, and some things aren't. So you can be in control, but I wanted to, the key point here, this is fluid. You can be here, but you go down, you go up and down. You cannot always control what takes you that way. You can control what takes you that way. How far? There are limits. So this morning on the news, I saw the Drake 1 mile run, little news flash. And they showed the people that run the Drake 1 mile run. Well, that was neat. But then they showed this guy coming across later in a walker. And he was in his, probably, I don't know, 40s or 50s. And it said, well, yeah, a year ago, last November, he fell, and well, he broke his back. He broke his L1 back. He was totally bedridden down here. So a year and a half later, his goal was to finish that 1 mile just on his feet with a walker. And they asked him, what's your goal next year? The goal next year is to do it with canes. What do you think his goal is going to be for the next year? Oh, yeah. Now, so what I wanted to do is set the stage for emotional health, but I wanted you to get this idea of a continuum. I'm a linear guy. I like pictures. I like pictures and lines, or you're here, here, and you go that. So we're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to try to develop the same thing for emotional fitness. And kind of see what we come up with, what's at this end, what's at that end, what's in between, and what makes us go back and forth on that. Sound like that? So, go have some chow or goodies or whatever.
Shower goodies.
Thank you for taking your seats, Dan. I appreciate that. It's hard to get away from those cookies, isn't it? A pair of glasses was turned into me. If they belong to someone, and you may need them for your note-taking. Anybody lose a pair of glasses during the first half?
I still got them on.
Back there, okay, I'll bring them back to you. We have folders and pens on those back chairs so that if you want to take notes, you have something to write on. And if you don't have a bucket course folder, you're welcome to keep that. If you don't want to take it home, just leave it on the chairs and we'll have it for you again next week. So here's the second half of emotional wellness, from depression to happiness, with JR.
Thanks, Joanne. One leftover comment from the first half was brought up by Jim. Can you exercise too much? The answer is yes. Like everything else in the world, Aristotle said the golden mean. So too much exercise is bad, too little. And that's done by, it's explained very nice what we call the J-shaped curve. The J-shaped curve is what it says. Looks like a J. Or a backwards J-shaped curve. But it does make a difference because if you turn the curve either way, the same point is made. So exercise is going this way. On this axis is disease or mortality. In other words, so higher up here, the more likely you are to die, and the more likely you're going to have some kind of illness or problems. Well, as you do more exercise, you get healthier, you get healthier, you get healthier, and you get a point down here where that is the healthiest you will be. And if you now start exercising more, the curve goes up. And when it goes up, you're going to get more disease or mortality. You will actually die earlier. Here you are hurting your body. You're doing more injury. You're burning up muscle, not just fat. So there is a sweet spot for exercise. So some of these athletes, whether they're Grinnell College, professional, part of it is finding that sweet spot. So you just train, there's a point where you get diminishing return, and I've seen this in people who have overtrained for the marathon. They train and they train and they train up to the day. No, if you've done marathons before, you know the last kind of week you ramp down, you do your long run a week before, and a couple days you chill out, because then you have the best. The people that just train and keep training up into it, they just do poor. Okay, second point I'll make is we're all genetically different. I think. So this may be Jim's J point, but somebody else might have another J point like this. Somebody else might have another J point like here. We all have our individual J points. So to saying where you should be on that line, you should be higher. No, not necessarily. For you, there's a J point. Likewise, if you have a disease or had a disease-limiting condition, that's going to shift your J point this way, isn't it? So if you have a lung condition or heart condition, there's still the sweet spot where this amount of training and conditioning is good, but if you go further, you might have a heart attack, or it's going to be harder on your lungs, or on your back, or on your muscles. Okay? So I want to make that point. So there's a spot, and it's for different people at different ages, that J point. Okay. Now, let's change to have some fun with, this is emotional well-being. Okay, and again, what do you want to put on the end? We're not going to put death, but what's right next to death emotionally wise? Suicidal. So let's put suicide down here. Because when you are ready to kill yourself or have attempted or are in the process of, I mean, do we all agree you can't get lower than that? Okay. What do you want to put up at the other end? This is a little more problematic. And obviously, up this way is happiness. And obviously, this way is sadness. But what do you want to put up there?
Euphoria.
Euphoria.
Serenity.
Over the top.
Ecstasy. Agony and ecstasy.
Peace.
Enlightenment.
Ooh, enlightenment. Want to see what that means? Now, enlightenment is a term usually used by Buddhists, and because Buddha sat under the tree and received enlightenment, and therefore could go to nirvana. He found nirvana. So let's call this nirvana. But we don't have to figure too much what that is. Yes?
Contentment would be high.
Contentment. So, people at this end, optimism. And how about people at this end? What will we put them? So, these in the middle, let's just make a fun, pretend that's the middle. This will be fun. Let's just say, let's call the middle where people see the glass half full and half empty. You know, I don't know what you're going to come up with the middle, but I mean, you know, you're good, you're bad. George, you're going to comment.
I want to comment on the good side.
Yes.
Is not nirvana a better place to express that extreme rather than euphoria? It seems to me euphoria is an emotional high that happens once in a while, but it's a state that no one can maintain. So, but nirvana might be a state that you could achieve through certain disciplines and so on, be in that state.
Very good. And so George is saying certain feelings, like sadness. Is sadness a place? No, it's a feeling. So what do we call people who are living down in this end? They have what? Depression. They got depression. Agreed? So happiness, euphoria up there, state feeling depressed. And depression is a range, right? It can be mild, moderate, or severe. Severe depression comes right down to the edge, and that's what we call vegetative depression. That's when people are in bed, they will not get out of bed, they will not eat. They will die unless you do something. You put a feeding tube in them or do something. And I have patients that have been like that and are like that, that are vegetative. Up here, you know, where is the border for depression and mild depression? I don't know. What other things do we have that go along on this side? Anxiety, right?
Agony.
Agony.
Doubt.
Doubt about what? Self or whatever?
Life.
Doubts. We just put doubts, plural.
Hopelessness.
Hopelessness. Oh, we're working on here more bad stuff.
Yes.
These people tend to, they have more anger.
Stress, where does that fit?
Stress can be a mover, right? It drive you that way, but it can also drive that way. I was a little stressed out this morning before I came to class. My wife is noted. But it was a good kind of stress. It was getting the adrenaline going and getting worked up. So the stress before a race, stress before a presentation. So the stress can push us ahead to do well. But it can also, if we don't deal with it well, takes us the other way. Okay, what else? Anger. Give me some more stuff down here. What are people like that you would say are unhappy? What are unhappy people like?
Negative.
They're grouchy.
Grouchy.
Irritable.
Ooh, irritable, that's good.
Negative.
Negative.
Isolated.
Isolated.
Can't let go.
Can't let go.
Married,
Pardon?
married.
Married? Okay. No, that's good. I mean, think about it. Marriage can drive you that way, or it can drive you nuts or insane the other way. Seriously. And we'll have to figure out why. Children. Yeah. And parents.
Job.
Grief. So grief, these people tend to have more grief. Yeah, definitely grief is going to be on the negative side, isn't it?
Yeah. No
And if you get enough grief, it can really take you down, correct?
Isn't part of it how you deal with the things on the left? I mean, everybody will experience those things on the left,
Absolutely.
but some will absorb them and some will
The
recover.
question is, doesn't everybody have these things? And it's how you deal with them. And this is great lead-in for the rest of the course. Yes. Because, remember, my goal is to hide people that are here or stuck down here. How do you move them up here? And that's what I'm going to come up with, ideas, hypotheses, ways to do that. Particularly if you're even way down here. And you think it's going to be solved by just giving them a Prozac? No, not necessarily. So we're going to have to find out what are the variables here. Any other ones down here?
non-motivated.
Non-motivated. Good.
How about pain?
Pain. Ooh, that's good.
Economy.
The economy.
You're out of money, you don't see it. Oh, there's a lot of stress in it.
Yeah, or economic, because I'm thinking about our kid now, Calcutta, and our kid with the rich family in suburbia. He's got all the stuff he can want. Or the rich millionaire person who's really down here. Or the very poor person who's up here. Or the nun. Or so I think we've all seen that the economic doesn't necessarily determine where you're going to be in the line. Now, they've done a study that shows there's a certain amount of money which happiness correlates with. But it's only like, well, in our economy it's $30,000 or $40,000. There's a certain amount that you have shelter, you have security, you have food, you have these things, and if you have that, then people are happier. But it isn't a line, the more money you got, the happier you are. I mean, data shows that clearly. And maybe sometimes it goes off the other way. You know, the more money you have, the more problems the other way, yeah. Question I saw in the back. Yeah, Leo.
Does it have something to do with duration? I mean, if it's chronic or transitory, is it functional in some way that it's useful? You know, it may get you going.
Okay,
How much shame?
does it moves? In other words, it's going to be very different if you come down here and then you drift back up to here, or if you're stuck here. People with depression, in my next lecture that we'll go over, we're going to go over this in more detail. And we're going to define about how long are you stuck before we're going to call it depression. We're going to agree, just like we had a physiology agree, well, doctors, we kind of got together, and well, I haven't, but they have, and we're going to just tell you what we use for those criteria. What are the benchmarks? And then we're going to see if you guys think those are good benchmarks or crappy benchmarks. Because I'm not convinced they're good benchmarks, yes.
I assume you are going to address genetics and the chemical aspects of the brain.
You better believe it. So you see where we talked about the physical fitness, and the question is, do genetics, are they going to play a part? And the quick answer is, of course, yes. But the more detail in the course is what and how much. Just like my genetics are not going to get me to jump a certain height or do a certain mile. But are my genetics going to limit me on how happy I can be? However, some people, so we'll talk about this when we do depression in our next thing, we're born with different chemical sets. And that's the ground that we were given. So we're going to have to talk about how much does that chemistry that we were born with genetically determine, and how much can we determine that chemistry or change it, or are we just screwed because that whatever. Yeah.
Have they done studies as far as whether introverted or extroverted people are happier?
Yes. Versus yes. So the social milieu is going to play a huge amount. Yes.
How about
Nope. You don't have to raise your hand. Yeah, age. Ooh. Okay, what do you guys think about age? Now, I told you with the physical fitness thing that it's movable, you can go up. What do you think at age if for people?
Depends on
Hypotheses?
Yeah, depends on those other things, I think.
Depends on what?
On all those other things, if you have pain, if you have social support, if you have a lot of other.
Life experiences.
Gender?
Gender.
There's a big difference in how different genders.
Who has more depression, men or women?
women?
Yeah, sorry, women. All women, at least 2 times more depression. Serious, real depression. That is, so that has something to do with genetics. I don't know transgender people, what that is, but they got their own set of issues. But women and men is the difference. Let's go on the age thing. So we're getting the same thing. I hope you're seeing the conclusion is that we have our genetics, but then what does life deal us? Right? So if you get older and you get dealt a bunch of crap, that's going to be different than if you kind of sail through and everything's kind of cool. Unfortunately, people who live long enough, my brother lived in their mid-90s, what is inevitably going to happen? All of your friends and other people that you've had, you're outliving them all. So you get older and you're just going to have more losses. And we're going to have to talk about that, on how that makes a difference, or does it, on how we deal with loss. So that's really important. Yes?
Under genetics, should we put environment?
No.
No.
said, if I don't make younger friends, I won't have any. He had a real knack at getting acquainted with new people, and he exercised it very responsibly. I would say it added years to his enjoyable journey.
Make new friends.
Two,
Make younger friends.
people out here, their happiness, make friends, more friends. Maybe they just have friends, right? More friends, make friends, new friends. You said their exercise?
He was
Yeah,
always
we're gonna tie
very
these together.
affirming of young people, always had been.
Younger.
Yeah.
How about, a lot of you I know, I consider you young brains. I think a lot of you I know are young brains trapped in old bodies. Am I right or wrong? You know, I got some old brains trapped in young bodies. And so your age doesn't necessarily do it. Yes, sir.
The term attitude, it's a bigger concept than a lot of what we talked about, but, I had a boss one time who said, well, the only thing that gets you in trouble in this company is a bad attitude. And I think attitude, how do we talk about that term as it fits into that?
Absolutely.
And interest.
How about guilt on the negative side?
What's on the negative side?
Guilt.
How about shame?
Ooh, yeah.
Guilt and shame.
How about the perception that you could change your destiny?
Guilt and shame was one of Freud's biggest things. The question was, what about guilt and shame? Shame can put you down here and keep you down there, particularly if it's not resolved.
How about the perception that you can change your destiny?
Pardon?
The perception that you can change your destiny. You can
Let's call that
Yeah.
you can change your destiny. Determination. And what did we just talk about in the last talk about? We talked about values and goals, right? I'm going to come back to that later. If you think that certain goals are not attainable because you don't value them, you ain't going to get there, right? Even though if you could. So if you think, those of you in here want to run a 5K, think, oh, I can't run a 5K. The guy just broke his back. He did the mile. Now, he didn't go for time, but he did it with a walker. And he finished. You see people at Boston on wheelchairs. You see people at Boston on one leg, with their artificial leg. You see people at Boston with cerebral palsy that run like this. It takes them 7 hours. So people say, well, we can't do this, or I can't do that. Part of it, there's a limitation. Are they going to run a 4-minute mile? Don't think so. 5-minute mile? Don't think so. I mean, but again, where we're at. See the difference in physical? And the question is there mental goals and values that we put on ourselves or don't have? Yeah, Joan.
As you age, I think you have less peer pressure, which is good.
So you see advantages to being more mature. Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to be happy you're going to see in my 3rd or 4th lecture that I'm going to say, put part of the cat out of the bag. I already gave you the one about the physical is going that way. And I'm going to posit that by the time we're done with this course, you should see that the happiness stuff will be going the other way. Even though your body and stuff is going down, people that have more life experience, and I'm going to attribute that to big wisdom. See, we're getting a little non-medical here, but we're going to get into philosophy and spirituality too in our 4th lecture, because I think spirituality is very important and whatever. But wisdom, because I think you guys are getting more wisdom and we get smarter. Well, supposedly we get smarter, not knowledge-wise, but we get wiser as we get older. And that's an advantage that younger folks don't have, that you can't teach, that the life experience just has to do it. So the good thing is, hopefully you're all, and you're in this class, you're obviously getting wiser, but getting more wisdom. And that is going to help you negotiate. So that's going to be one of my sub-themes here when I get to how do you get out of depression or happiness or keep people from going in. Yes?
Back to gender a little bit, it is my experience, and I have read that women get happier as the age goes that way, and men get more depressed as their age goes that way. I read that just recently.
No, wait, you were pointing that way.
Well,
You mean that way?
when you get older, men get more depressed, and women get less depressed.
Okay, age.
Women about age 50 are the happiest.
Let's leave that question on the table and come back to that. I mean, seriously.
I will bring my
We'll do that. Yes, well,
The negative, if people are bored, or if people have a lot of interest in things and travel.
Curiosity is a positive.
Yeah, curiosity. Yeah.
good. Okay, let me talk about, remember on the physical fitness part, we talked about if some event happens to you and you're living up at this end, do you do better and come back faster than if you were living at this end? What do you think happens emotionally if the same event happens to a person here or happens to a person here? Think it's going to be the same effect? Similar? What do the rest of you think? You're already down in the dumps, you're already kind of down here, and then you lose your best friend or your mother or your dog or your cat. How long, well, how deep is that going to send you this way? First question. And the second one is, how long is it going to take you to come back? Or now you're going to come back? And if you're up here and have peace, contentment, enlightenment, all this, and you're living up around here, you have the same laws, you're going to get shot down that way. You'd be an idiot or disingenuous if you weren't, but are you going to stay down there and are you going to come back? So the point I'm going to make here, or hypothesis, is that the farther up here, you have emotional resilience. I want to use that term, emotional resilience. Just like physical, you can snap back and get better. With your broken hip, with your surgery, with your pneumonia, with whatever, I'm going to posit that you do a lot better if you're up there. With the same stuff. So that's what I'm going to try to say on that. I love what somebody told me about did you see the glass half empty or half full, the pessimist and optimist? Where are people on that? The guy said, well, my mother, she's just not a pessimist. She not only sees the glass empty, but she sees somebody knocking it off on the floor and spilling on the carpet. What's in it? Holy God, I never thought of that. So I mean, that just takes the worry part and the anxiety to a whole new level. And likewise, people who see the glass more full, I don't care whether you're going to a lecture or a class, a movie, a picture, eating food, whatever it is, you carry, as I showed in the early classes on belief in the truth, you carry your what you think is going to happen all the way in with you first. And then you get out of something, and very often it's what you've expected to get out of it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're already programmed to look for that. So, are some people their own worst enemies? Yes. Yeah. But it can work in a positive way too. Correct? Okay. Now, what we want to do is try to figure out where people's set points are. So your homework assignment is going to be, and we'll ask some more questions. Oh, I got a couple more things on this, I forgot. Looking at my notes here. How would a teenager maybe try to get up there? Drugs. Yeah. Because what can drugs do?
Give you euphoria.
Drugs can give you euphoria. They even cause some ecstasy. And does it? If I give all you a nice snort of cocaine, I guarantee you all going to feel pretty good. Seriously. Cocaine cranks that serotonin up in all of us. We all are serotonin receptor people. So it will all make us feel great. How great? Well, I don't know, but different places. Then, but it wears off, where do we go? Do we just go back to neutral? Yeah, not usually. We go back down to here. So then what's the logical next thing to do? Well, that's no fun. Let's go back up there again. Well, what happens in substance abuse and addiction? So we can put down here addiction, right? Alcohol, drugs, whatever. And the high gets less high, and then pretty soon you gotta have the drug just to be here. Just to be able to function. So whether it's alcohol or whatever, so we're not talking high, we're just the alcohol to be able to get up and get moving. And then, of course, you see the pattern drifts further and further. And as you get further and further this way, hopelessness, anger, all the characteristics of substance abuse. Do we know there's a genetic predisposition of substance abuse? You better believe it. Yes. But is that by itself wholly, you can't change that, but what we're going to find out in other lectures, what things you can change and what things you can't. But so the drug thing was really important there. Well, the question is, in the first lecture was, where should you be as a person on a physical fitness scale? And I'd hypothesize and say, well, ideally, we should all be at our J points. I mean, ideally, right? We're going to be the best. We're not going to be too much. We're not going to do too little, whatever that is. And that's going to vary from time to time and from disease to disease and circumstance. I mean, that's what I would hypothesize. And that generally, on the physical fitness thing, the more you're this way, the better. But we don't have to be mucking around up in here. I don't think any of you are to Boston one day, did you? Yeah. Well, anyways. So, no. But we can, on this scale, can we be up here? Yeah. But where should we be? And where are you? The homework assignment then is, before you leave, Joanne's going to give you well, we're going to pick, or Anisha's got, I just got an index card. And what I'd like you to do is, on one side of the index card, just draw a line like this. And that's the physical fitness thing. And remember my thing on very poor, good, excellent, superior. And I would like you to make an X of where you are now. You think, just generally, I'm not going to come in and do a VMAX next time or put you on a treadmill. We could all go out and do a 12-mile walk run, but I don't think we're going to do that. That was a good idea. And then you're going to the X, but then you're going to put a little range. You know, what kind of range do you kind of live in? You see what I'm saying? So you're maybe not good, but you're not bad, but we all range. Let's face it. We get better in the winter, worse in the winter, a little better in the summer when we get out walking. So where are you? What's kind of your range on that scale? That make sense? So you have your line, your thing, and I live here, but I kind of range between here. Some of you will range a lot further. Some of you may do no exercise in the winter and just all of the summer. So you may have a wider range, maybe from here to here. And then I would like you to do two other points on there. One point, I would like you to make a notation of where and when you were the best shape you ever were in your life. Think back, I don't know when it was, hopefully sometime. And just make a little note to yourself, okay, that was when I was a swimmer for Iowa State, or that's when I was farming 800 acres. I don't know, just when you're best. And then I also want you to tell me where your worst was. And Burl told me his worst down here was he could not turn over without help. Not walk, turn over in bed, right, Burl? So Burl's, I guess this is anonymous, don't put your name on it, but I'll probably know yours. Because he's going to be way down there, unless some of you, now, if you've had a hip replacement or hip surgery, I don't know, you had 2 new knees, maybe at that point you were down here someplace, but you've gotten better, or, you know, maybe you did right by, and, okay, you got that? So, worst you were, best you were, and kind of where you're living now.
Physically.
Physically. What's going to be on the other side?
Yeah.
Where are you emotionally now? On your happiness thing. So, and you right on the side, so I know which is which, emotional. Where are you kind of at? Well, seriously, you know, where you are emotionally now, and what kind of range do you live in? Do you just kind of live? Are you a dour, pessimistic person? Or you wouldn't be in this class probably. But anyways, you know, you're kind of living down here. Do you see the glass always more empty than full? And some people live here. A lot of people live here. Depressed people live here. You know, but where are you living here now? What is your kind of emotional range? If you're manic depressive, you're going to go from all over the place. We'll talk a little bit about manic depressive illness, but not too much. And then, put your ex, when was the best time in your life? Hopefully, maybe when you got married. Or maybe that's the worst time in your life. Or when you birthed your kids, or I don't know. I mean, that's going to be interesting. And then when you're in the pits. Wife died, kids died, your dog died. What your husband, where puts an X down, how low have you been at your lowest point, and just some notation to yourself about what year at a time or event what was that?
How about a timeline? You could have more than one high or low.
Oh, I just want one. I want your lowest, and I want your highest. Because I figure everything else is going to be in between. Right? Probably, by definition. That's the idea. And I was going to have fun, because when you just bring those to the next class, I'm going to kind of put them together and tally them up. I'm just curious to see where people are doing. And then I'm also curious to know what would that be like if we did that, went out to the high school and did that, or went out to other people who were not here. But this will be a nice representative sample, because you've all lived life. Okay, so the next class will be, I'm going to use some PowerPoint, and we're going to talk about depression, how we define that medically, specifically, and how we treat it. So if people are depressed or stuff, get here, and obviously we're going to talk about the medical model, because I'm a Western doctor, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some receptors. I'm not going to overbore you with receptor serotonin theory, but we're going to do a little bit of brain stuff. And then I'm going to say, how well is that working for us? Well, from the statistics I already gave you, you already figured out that we ain't doing so hot. So the chemical thing is not the whole story, or we're missing something. Then we're going to have to create a new model for depression and happiness and figure out what that means and how we can do a better job going from there to there.
Did I read you right? You want physical on one side and mental on the other? Or do you want
Physical on one and mental on the other. So everybody just gets one copy. Emotional, yeah. Your emotional fitness and your physical fitness. One on one side, one on the other. Yeah, label. Well, time for you, the excellent audience, so we'll plan on seeing you next week. Enjoy
Thank you for you bring those cards back again next week. We put folders and pens on all the chairs in the back so that you have something to write on. And you can either leave those here and we'll supply them again next week, or take them home and bring them back again. Also, if you are interested, if we're not able to get into Dan Kaiser's lecture last week, it is now on Get 12. And it is airing at 11 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening. And there also, the SEED program will have a repeat of his lecture on Monday, June 9th. So you'll have a chance to see that. We look forward to seeing all of you next week. Thank you for coming.